You're listening to the Full Circle Weekly News. These articles are compiled by Eric the Unready, and I'm your host, Moss Bliss. This is episode 388, covering week 41, October 7th to 13th, 2024. Linus Torvalds has issued a new criticism of the maintenance practices of Bcachefs in the mainline Linux kernel. The gist of the complaint is that Kent Overstreet, the author of Bcachefs, always sends in a lot of changes at the last minute before the next RC release, and this time his changes caused the 6.12-RC1 build to break on big endian systems when Bcachefs was enabled because the patches were only tested in Kent's local branch and no other contributors were involved in reviewing them. The pull request was eventually accepted, but a discussion ensued about testing, continuous integration systems, and community engagement, with several people noting that Kent clearly had trouble communicating with other developers and always seemed to think he was right, which was causing problems for the project in the mainline kernel. Linus warned Kent that he was considering simply removing Bcachefs from the mainline kernel, as Kent continued to play alone in his sandbox, not joining in, and unwilling to play by the kernel community's rules. Anti-X 23.2 has been published, aimed at installation on outdated hardware. The release is based on Debian 12 but is supplied without systemd and with EUDEV instead of UDEV. For initialization, you can use runit or sysvinit. The user environment is using the IceWM window manager by default, but Fluxbox JWM and Herbstloff WM are additionally included in the delivery. The builds are prepared for the x86-64 and i386 architectures. The full build offers Linux kernel 6.1.105 and other builds 5.10.224. The versions of applications have been updated, such as LibreOffice 24.8.2, Firefox 128.3.0 ESR, and CMonkey 2.53.19.1. The SM2 application has been discontinued. MX Linux 23.4, the joint work of the communities formed around the Anti-X and Mepis projects, is out. The release is based on Debian with improvements from the Anti-X projects and packages from its own repository. The distribution uses the sysvinit initialization system and its own tools for configuring and deploying the system. There are 32 and 64-bit builds for x86-64 and i386 with XFCE Desktop, as well as 64-bit builds with the KDE Desktop and builds with the Fluxbox window manager. Development of OpenSUSE Leap 16.0 distribution has begun, built on the technologies of the SUSE Linux Framework 1, or SLFO platform, previously known as ALP. OpenSUSE Leap 16.0 attempts to combine the traditional capabilities of the distribution with the new SFLO technologies. The new branch is positioned as a traditional distribution, delivered in a fundamentally new form and using packages from SLES 16 and the community-supported Factory repository. It is scheduled for release in October 2025. The OpenSUSE Leap 15.6 release published in June will be the last release of the 15.x branch, and access to package updates is to be provided through the Package Hub. Pre-alpha builds of OpenSUSE Leap 16.0 have been created for testing. 3 installation modes are offered: Basic, GNOME, and KDE, each with the new Agama installer. The SLFO platform is a continuation of the development of the SUSE Linux Enterprise distribution and is distinguished by the division of the distribution's basic foundation into parts. The distribution of SUSE 16 will be a stripped-down host OS environment, including only the components that are minimally necessary for working on top of the hardware and management. All applications and user space components will be launched not in a mixed environment, but in separate containers or virtual machines running on top of the host OS and isolated from each other. OpenBSD 7.6 has been released. The OpenBSD project is known for its components, which have become widespread in other systems and have established themselves as some of the most secure and high-quality solutions. Among them are LibreSSL, OpenSSH, the PF packet filter, the OpenBGPD and OpenOSPFD, routing daemons, the OpenNTPD NTP server, the OpenSMTPD mail server, the TMUX test terminal multiplexer, the IdentD daemon with the implementation of the ident protocol, an alternative to the GNU Groff package called Mandoc, the Common Address Redundancy Protocol, a lightweight HTTP server, and an OpenRSync file synchronization utility. LibreBoot 2024-1008 has been published, which is an experimental release focused on the development of functionality. The project develops a ready-made build of the core boot project, providing a replacement for proprietary UEFI and BIOS firmware responsible for initializing the CPU, memory, peripherals, and other hardware components with minimal binary inserts. LibreBoot creates a system environment that allows for as little proprietary software as possible at the operating system level and at the boot firmware level. LibreBoot complements core boot with tools to simplify use, creating a ready-made distribution that can be used by any user without special skills. The new version features a shorter code base and a simpler build system. Support has been added for a number of new systems. Synchronization with the following code bases has been implemented: Core Boot as of July 29th, CBIOS on June 24th, FlashProg on August 2nd, Grub on June 17th. U-Boot has been updated to version 2024.07. XCP-NG 8.3 has been released, developing a free and open-source replacement for the proprietary Xen server platform for deploying cloud infrastructure and managing its operation. XCP-NG recreates the functionality that was excluded from the free Citrix Hypervisor/Xen servers starting with version 7.3 and allows you to quickly deploy a server and workstation virtualization system, offering tools for centralized management of an unlimited number of servers and virtual machines. The system features include the ability to combine several servers into a pool or cluster, high availability tools, snapshot support, and shared resource sharing using XenMotion technology. Live migration of virtual machines between cluster hosts and between different clusters/individual hosts that do not have a common storage is supported, as well as live migration of VM disks between storages. The platform features a simple and intuitive interface for installation and administration. The XCP-NG 8.3 branch will be the last in the 8.x series, and the 9.0 release will mark the project's departure from repeating Xen server in favor of implementing its own vision for building a platform. XCP-NG 9.0 will also target new areas of application, such as providing tools for migration from VMware platforms. Ubuntu 24.10 Oracular Oriole has been published. It is classified as an intermediate release. Updates are made for 9 months, and support will be provided until July 2025. Ready-made installation images have been created for Ubuntu and all official flavors. Upgrades in desktops and applications are to be found in all editions. The developers of the Asahi Linux project have presented a toolkit for running modern computer games in Linux environments running on systems with the Apple M1 chip, including AAA games available in the Steam catalog and compiled for the x86-64 architecture. The toolkit provides integration of the drivers created by the project, implementing the Vulkan 1.3 and OpenCL 3.0 API, with components that provide emulation of the x86-64 architecture and compatibility with Windows. The packages required for operation have already been added to the standard repository of the Fedora Asahi Remix distribution. To launch games, it is enough to update the drivers with the command dnf upgrade -- refresh and install Steam with the command dnf install Steam, and it will pull in all the necessary dependencies. The stack used to launch games is built on the Vulkan driver Honeycrisp, the FEX emulator, the Wine project, and the DXVK and VKD 3D Proton layers, with the implementation of the DirectX API on top of Vulkan. 16 gigabytes of RAM is recommended. Alignment issues due to the mismatch between the memory page sizes used by the operating system and those required by applications were resolved by running a second Linux kernel in a virtual environment built with a different memory page size. The MUVM toolkit is used to run games in separate virtual machines with their own kernels. Features not yet implemented include support for sparse texturing in the Honeycrisp driver, which is required to run some DX12-based games. Work is also underway to optimize performance to achieve 60 FPS in an emulated environment. Microsoft has proposed the first series of patches for inclusion in the main Linux kernel related to a host environment for the Hyper-V hypervisor. The host environment is responsible for managing the hypervisor, launching of guest systems, allocating resources, and ensuring the interaction of virtual machines with the hardware. The ability to use Linux as a host environment for the Hyper-V virtualization system was initially introduced in 2020 and is already being used in Microsoft's infrastructure, but has so far been developed in the form of separate patches. The new initiative aims to integrate those patches into the main kernel. The need to use Linux to manage the Hyper-V hypervisor is to simplify maintenance and improve the performance of servers serving Microsoft Cloud systems. Open3D Foundation has released the Open3D Engine 24.09, suitable for developing modern AAA games and high-fidelity simulators capable of running in real time and providing cinematic-level quality. The code is written in C++ and published under the Apache 2.0 license. There is support for Linux, Windows, macOS, iOS, and Android platforms. The O3DE engine was open-sourced in July 2021 by Amazon and is based on the code of the proprietary engine Amazon Lumberyard, built on Engine Technologies licensed from Crytek in 2015. The engine's more recent development has been overseen by O3DF, a non-profit organization under the auspices of the Linux Foundation. Amazon, Epic Games, Adobe, Huawei, Microsoft, Intel, and Niantic have joined the project. RPM 4.20.0 package manager was released. The RPM 4 project is developed by Red Hat and is used in RHEL, Fedora, SUSE, OpenSUSE, Alt Linux, OpenMandriva, Mageia, PC Linux OS, and Tizen. The project code is distributed under the GPL v2 and LGPL v2 licenses. Next year, a new major branch will be dedicated to the anniversary of the project. November 27, 2025 will mark 30 years since the first commit to RPM. The developers of the KDE Neon project have announced the transition of builds to use the LTS release of Ubuntu 24.04. Several versions of KDE Neon builds are available for download: User Edition based on the latest stable releases of KDE, Testing Edition based on KDE testing branches with bug fixes that have not yet been transferred to stable releases, Unstable Edition based on repository branches in development to which new features are transferred, and Developer Edition, which supplements Unstable Edition with libraries for developers. The KDE Neon project was created by Jonathan Riddell with the aim of providing the ability to install fresh versions of KDE programs and components. KDE Neon builds and their associated repositories are updated whenever possible immediately after KDE releases, significantly earlier than new versions of KDE appear in the various distribution repositories. The DistroBox 1.8 toolkit has been released, allowing you to quickly install and run any Linux distribution in a container and ensure its integration with the main system. The project code is written in Shell and is distributed under the GPL v3 license. The project provides an add-on for Docker, Podman, or LilyPod. To create an environment with another distribution, it is enough to execute distrobox-create. After launching, DistroBox forces the user's home directory to the container, configures access to the X11 and Wayland server to run graphical applications from the container, allows connecting external drives, adds sound output, implements integration at the level of the SSH agent, dbus, and UDEV. DistroBox claims to be able to use 26 distributions as a host system. Any distribution for which there are images in OCI format can be launched in the container. After installation, the user can fully work in another distribution without leaving the main system. Wayland-Protocols 1.38 has been released, containing a set of protocols and extensions that complement the core Wayland protocol and provide the capabilities needed to build composite servers and user environments. All protocols consistently go through 3 phases: development, testing, and stabilization. After the development stage is completed, the protocol is placed in the staging branch and officially included in the Wayland-Protocols set, and after testing is completed, it is moved to the stable category. Protocols from the staging category can already be used in composite servers and clients where the functionality associated with them is required. Staging prohibits making changes that break compatibility, but if problems and shortcomings are detected during testing, a replacement with a new major version of the protocol or another Wayland extension is not excluded. You've been listening to Full Circle Weekly News. For more details, see the next issue of the magazine at fullcirclemagazine.org or check the links in the show notes. You can contact me at bardmoss@pm.me. I'll see you next week.